Ended with the operational requirement needs of a medical shop owner. What I've been talking about and what I am going to talk about in the future lectures is taken from this book which I wrote. It's called Analysis and Design of Information Systems, published by Prentice Hall. So if you want to get details, then all the details will be in this book, and all the chapters I am going to be covering in this course. To continue, the next important part of the information requirement of a shopkeeper is what is known as tactical information. Tactical information is at a higher level than what one requires for a day-to-day operation. Tactical information tells you how to manage your shop better and how to increase your profitability of your shop. Now, in order to increase the profitability of your shop, you should really know which are the items which are moving very fast, which are the items which are moving very slow. So, what you would do is stock the items which are being sold very rapidly and also reorder them at a higher level when it goes a little below what you think is the optimal level to have it. And if it is slow moving item, the amount you will reorder will be quite small, and also you will reorder it at a much larger intervals, so that you do not have dead stock in your company or in your shop. The point is that dead stock in any shop is really is not producing any income to you. It is only a cost which you have paid already for the items which you bought. So, it is very important to make sure that you do not have dead stock. This is called dead inventory in the case of a very large organization. You also would like to have an idea of which suppliers supply items to you in a regular way and whenever you require, because most often we find that a lot of different vendors are willing to supply the same item, but some of them are good in giving you whenever you require, some of them delay and so on. So, if you keep account of the what I would call the vendor quality index, based on the vendor quality index you can increase the amount of items you buy from a good vendor and reduce the amount of items you buy from a not so good vendor, or eliminate certain vendors who are always late or are not giving you the right quality items. So, the important for a tactical management to be able to understand who are the good suppliers, who are the bad suppliers, and adjust your requirements based on the suppliers index or vendors index. Now, of course, one may ask, why not go to the best vendor all the time, but it turns out that if you always go to the best vendor all the time, there is no competition. Secondly, if suppose something happens to that vendor's company, strike or something like that, then you are completely stuck. You don't have an alternate source of supply. So most shops as well as most companies make sure that there are more than one vendor available, so that there is a backup. And in order to keep every vendor happy, you do give certain amount of order to each vendor and not starve a vendor for a very long time. You also have to look at the sales trends. If your sales are not going up at a reasonable rate which you expected, then you have to ask the question, why is my sale not going at the right direction? It is going down, and so it may be because some other shop is open nearby, or it may be because your customers are unhappy with what you have done, and or it may be because customers have to wait for a long time to get items from your shop. So you have to make sure that you are able to detect these deficiencies in your tactics of running the shop and take corrective action. So primarily then, tactical information is to improve the profitability of your shop, not necessarily just to keep track of your day-to-day operations. The next level or higher level of what I would call the information you require is what is known as strategic information. Strategic information is an information which is distilled information based on what transpired earlier or based on the operational data. What I mean by what transpired earlier is you create a certain kind of history of what happened in the shop, or in an organization, what happened in the organization over a certain period. For instance, in the case of a shop, suddenly if he starts seeing that his sales is going down, it may be because of some other new shop which has come nearby. So then he has to take a strategic decision whether to relocate his shop to a place where it is not as crowded in terms of competition, or whether he has to improve his service in a way which the other shop cannot serve. So there is a strategic decision he has to take. If it is a very large shop, for instance if it is a variety store, not necessarily a medical shop, he can also think about diversifying items. He may be selling only certain types of provisions and so on. He may decide that he would like to sell packaged food, or he may like to sell in addition sweets, milk and so on. In other words, diversification to improve the profitability is a higher level decision which is based on your experience and essentially your general, what I would say, experience and feeling that this kind of a direction will take your company farther. So you take a strategic decision which is normally done as I said based on some collection of what transpired for some time earlier. Similarly, suppose your business is doing very well, but you also find that some new areas have come up or new suburbs have come up, you may consider whether it is worthwhile starting a new branch of your shop, or if you are running a company, a new branch of your company at some other location, so that the market which is there, which does not have access to such shops, will have access, and you will be able to sell items in that other shop better. So changing locality is also something like, or diversifying or putting branches in different localities is also known as a strategic decision. Similarly, one more decision you may take is you are selling it with a physical shop. Instead of that, do you want to sell it by having an e-commerce customer to business kind of an activity? Like very often bookstores, do have books which are available in a store where a person can come and browse the books and buy the books and so on, but many persons find it more convenient to be able to buy a book from sitting at home, provided it is delivered directly to the person. So, because books are something where you can give a lot of information on the terminal itself, you can ask a number of reviews, how does it compare with other books and so on, and based on that you can decide to order from a e-bookshop. In other words, the bookshop may have a physical version and it may also have an e-version. The e-version would make for a different kind of a business strategy. Then you have to compare whether your e-version really gave you the profits which you thought it would give, because after all, when you want to start a new e-version of your shop, it costs money, you have to invest money. When you invest money, you have to find out whether that investment is paying off, and so you compare what it has done compared to what you have been able to get from your physical bookshop. And if the e-bookshop is doing much better than your physical bookshop, then you may decide to expand the e-operation and reduce your physical book operation. And these are kind of strategic decisions one may take. You also may think about exploring new opportunities. You may be a bookshop, but you may find that over and above books, it also is profitable to be able to sell CDs of music, and the persons who come to your shop to buy books, if they find CDs there also, they may buy CDs in addition to the books. In fact, interestingly, a company called Rediff.com in India, there is actually an e-commerce company, started off with books, but later on they diversified to many items, including records, there is CDs and other items also, like encyclopedias, like even clothing and stuff like that. So, the question of diversification again depends upon what you feel is going to be the profitability of this diversification. So, these are the decisions which a top management normally takes to improve their company's performance. Lastly, every organization, including a shopkeeper, has to conform to some statutory requirements. This is called statutory information. What is meant by statutory requirements is that requirements which is imposed by the government. It may be the state government or the central government. Every shop is supposed to have a sales tax registration number, which they normally put on top of their cash bills and so on. The sales tax authorities find out how much you have sold and tax you accordingly. So, sales tax returns had to be filed at the end of a specified period. Similarly, income tax accounts had to be filed at the end of each year. And there are maybe other kinds of information which you may have to provide to the government. For instance, how many people are you employing, and what is the kind of number of people whom you newly had, and how many people you have asked to go, and things like that. And besides that, apart from employees, you have a requirement very often of providing information such as in the case of a medical shop, for instance, the information on what types of so-called medicines which are made saleable only under prescription, that record of prescriptions, which doctor gave the prescription, what medicine was given to the customer, all that record is supposed to be maintained by the medical shop, to be inspected by the medical inspectors who come around. So, these are all statutory information which companies have to provide. I mean, there are umpteen statutory requirements. I mean, I am just giving you some examples. In fact, there is something called a boiler inspection, where they are supposed to come and look at the safety of your boiler, fire examination, whether your company or organization is safe when there is a fire. There are a whole lot of regulations which, and for that you have to keep the information readily available whenever the inspectors come around and ask questions. There is also something called excise duty. In any production which you do, based on the production, you are supposed to pay excise duty, and you have to keep track of how much you produced, how much you produced, to be able to give an account of the excise duty you paid and what you produced. So the statutory information, in fact, is a fair amount of detail which you are required to keep in order to be able to run any organization effectively. So to summarize, strategic information is needed for long range planning and what directions a company or an organization has to take. This is less structured. In other words, it is not always possible to process and give you that information. For instance, suppose I want to start a new shop. Now the only way I can take this decision is by my own experience and by talking to others and other persons who are in similar business. So it is not something which is presented to you based on the processing of all information. Sometimes it is there, but sometimes you have to take your own what I would call judgmental decisions. So it is required for long range planning, but some of it also comes from operational information. Like for example, if you have a railway reservation system, you primarily have from that system what trains were crowded, which trains were not crowded, and things like that. And so you may decide that there is a strategic need to say increase the trains on a particular route, and so you may have to double the track and that is a large investment, and that kind of decision is strategic, which is taken by normally the railway minister and so on. So there is a lot of things which are distilled from the lower level information, but not all statutory information can really be distilled from lower level information. Tactical information is needed for short range decisions to improve the profitability and performance. We saw an example of the use of a vendor quality index to decide which vendor you have to give your items, and these kinds of tactical decisions, like in the case of railways, it may be that you found this overcrowding or certain types of classes in the train are not occupied, whereas certain other classes are overcrowded. So you may decide to say remove an AC second class coach and instead put a sleeper, second sleeper coach. These kinds of tactical decisions are really taken by the level of people like general managers and so on. Operational, we said, is for day to day operations, and statutory is primarily what is required by the law for you to provide to the government. Now you can look at the entire thing as a pyramid, and the pyramid in the sense that at the lowest level there is operational level. The operational level work is done by what is known as line managers in any large company, and these line managers do a day to day running of this business. Like for instance, if you take a railway reservation system, the local station director of a local station is the one who does operational work, like based on the reservation charts and so on. He creates a complete chart and gives it to the people to go and paste it on railway compartments, and this is an operational decision, operational information. And he also finds out how much money was collected on any given day, and keeps an account of all the money collected. So this is detailed reports which is not at all, not at all I would say small in volume. Normally the volume is extremely large, and it is highly structured. What is meant by highly structured is that if you take a ticket, for instance, the structure of the ticket is well known: the name of the passenger, the PNR number, the origin, destination, the fare. All these things are detailed information. So detailed information is what is used at the operation level for the day-to-day operation of any company. At the tactical information is a little smaller in amount. So the pyramid goes like this, as you can see, and the middle of the pyramid, the amount of information is reduced, and the structuring also is reduced. And because of the fact that it combines a number of different types of tactical information to create the number of different types of operational information to create this tactical information. So tactical information is something which is medium level, moderately processed, and certain smaller amount of data, so that a person at a higher level decision making can take quick decisions. People are, some of these are called, say, exception reports. Like in the case of a large say retail store. What I mean by a large retail store is something like a Food World or Food Mart and Fab Mall and stuff like that. You got very large shops. There is the operational information is at the end of the day you can give the stocks of various items and so on. And if you give the complete stock item, it is not much use to the middle manager, that is the manager of the store. But on the other hand, at the end of the day you can give an exception report. Exception report may be that today this item, a lot of it was sold, and this item was not sold at all. Or you can say over a period of something like a week, you can say how much of an item is very fast moving, what item is slow moving. These kinds of information the middle manager effectively will use to refurbish his inventory. So this is the kind of thing which is tactical, and strategic is at a higher level, which is taken by high level management. In the case of say food stores, like Fab Mall or the Food World and so on, they normally have multiple branches in any city. Now static information is that should I open a new large another Food World in a new locality, or should I expand my current shop in a given locality, because what has happened is that there is a rush is very much and there is a lot of sales in that place. So maybe I will have to go to a larger premises and use the larger premises to sell better. So these are the types of decisions which are strategic, and is condensed, as I said, unstructured. Very often it is based on what I would say what happens with the competition and other information which is not entirely coming out of the organization. So one has to understand that when you design an information system for an organization, you have to be concerned not only with the day-to-day operational information, because that is a necessary requirement, but that is not sufficient to be able to run your organization in a profitable manner. In order to make profits from any company, it is important to have good tactical information, and it is very important to have good strategy for the organization to be able to increase your profitability in the long run. So these are important for any information system which you design. Now the question you may ask is, why do you need computer based information systems? If you take a shop, for instance, medical shop, it is normally one or two man show, and most of what they do is kept in registers. They just note it down and stuff like that. This is all right as long as your system is small. When you want to expand your shop and make it very large, then you cannot operate with one or two people. You have to operate with many more people. So the data volume increases. To take a very simple example of what is happening in the railways. In the railways, before the computerized reservation came, all reservation was being done manually. You go to the railway station, stand in a long queue, and they take up a register and look at whether it is booked or not booked, and then give you a ticket, and it used to take a long time. And this is possible as long as the number of trains was small and number of travelers was small. But as soon as the number of travelers increased and the number of trains increased, it just became impossible to manage the reservation system. So only alternative was to go towards a computerized system, because the sheer increase in volume of data which comes. In a country like India, where the population is very large and organizations also are becoming very large, there is a need to have computer aids for this. The computer aids makes it possible for you to be able to do things which otherwise couldn't be done as the data volumes have increased. Timely processing and fast action is possible. Like in the case of a reservation system, the long queues were reduced and you had more counters and more people can work simultaneously, because instead of all these manual registers, the entire reservation status is in a database in a computer. When it is a computerized database, many people can refer to that database simultaneously, and not only in the same city, but because of the communication network, the reservation status of trains from Bangalore to Chennai can be looked at by a reservation system in Delhi, and the Delhi people can know what is the situation in Bangalore to Chennai, because somebody wants to go to Bangalore and go onwards to Chennai, it becomes possible for you to book from Delhi itself, which is not possible in the manual system. So this so timely processing and fast action and certain things which couldn't be done earlier could also be done. And you have better competitiveness with better information. If you are well informed and you know which items are moving fast in your shop, which items are not moving fast, then you can improve your profitability and your competitiveness in the business can increase. In other words, suppose you find out that an item is moving very fast and that you are making a reasonable profit, you may decide to give a discount. If you decide to do a discount, that means people will come to you, and that discount will in turn be able to improve your profitability. Or for instance, if you find that some item is not selling at all, then you suddenly say that I am going to reduce the price by 50% to be able to clear the stock out of my store. So this kind of a decision which comes out of the collected information is what improves your profitability. Complexity of organization is increasing, and you require innovative processing when the complexity increases. Let me say what is meant by complexity has increased. If you take for instance a company producing motor cars like the Maruti Udyog, the complexity of the organization now consists of not only the factory which produces these cars, but it has got a whole lot of service stations which service the cars, because unless you have good servicing facility, the car will not sell. You have also a whole lot of suppliers who supply you items in order to manufacture the car. So the entire complexity, previously everything was done internally, because as long as the volume was small. When the volume becomes large, when you start selling a large number of cars, then it becomes very important for you to manage this complexity. A similar thing I told about in railways. The complexity has increased because number of routes is increased, number of travelers is increased, and the same thing has happened to the airlines. The complexity of operations has increased, competitiveness has increased, and that requires innovation. And organizations are distributed, like in the case of Maruti cars, for instance, the car is produced primarily near Delhi, but but their sales places and service centers are spread all over India, and so that becomes an important problem for them, the managing distribution. And same data can be processed in different ways. That we saw in terms of the fact that once you have a file, it can be processed in number of different ways.
The management structure of any organization is normally hierarchical. What I mean by hierarchical is there is a top level management, which is normally a chief executive, who is the major leader of the entire organization. Then assisting him will be a number of middle managers, there would be vice presidents, general managers, and so on, who take essentially tactical decisions. And following this, below them, reporting to them, are a set of so-called assistant managers or managers who have specific responsibilities to do day-to-day operations of a company. This three-level organization is normally the one which is followed by most organizations, and these three levels are made in such a way that the top level decides on the strategy, the middle level decides on the tactics, and the bottom level looks after the day-to-day operations. Let me take a very simple example of what these three levels really mean. All of you, of course, would have followed the cricket matches which are going on all the time, and in a cricket team, the top level strategic decisions are normally taken by the coach, the captain of the team, and a group of selectors. There are a group of selectors who together constitute the persons who are the strategic decisions. The strategic decisions normally are, in the case of a cricket team, which players will play in the game. So, selection committee with the assistance of the coach and the captain decides on the team which is going to play in a given match. They normally do not decide on all the specific number of players who are going to play on a particular day. They have something like 2 or 3 extra put into this team, so that they can make a last minute strategic decision on including or removing some people depending upon the condition of the pitch, condition of the other team, and what they perceive is the weakness of the opposition and things like that. So, on the day of the match, because the final strategic decision on whom to include and whom to exclude depend on the 2 top people who take that decision at the match, namely the coach and the captain. Then once the players go into the field and they start playing, the tactical decisions are the ones which are taken by the captain. The coach is only sitting in the pavilion. The coach is only gives a overall direction on what ought to be done, but the tactical decisions on the field on what is to be done in terms of, say, which bowlers to give bowling for, where to put the fielders, and all these tactical decisions are essentially done by the captain on the field. And finally, of course, the operations in this case are all the 11 players who are fielding in the team, and also the bowler who is bowling and the wicket keeper and so on. Each one has got a specific job to perform, and they are the ones who are doing the operations, namely playing the game. So, okay, this 3 level is there in almost every organization. And if you take, for instance, a university, the top level or the chief executive is the vice chancellor. The vice chancellor, of course, also has a large group which advises him, which normally consists of so called syndicate and the senate and things of that type. And that is, they take the overall strategic decisions about what new courses start in the university, whether to stop some course, what departments to expand and things of that type. The overall strategic decisions in the direction in which the university ought to be going. And then there are many heads of departments who run each of the department, and they take a tactical decision regarding the growth of the department. That is, what new faculty to employ and what new courses to introduce in their own curriculum, and the examination methods and things of that type, which are tactical decisions, are taken by the HOD or the head of the department, along with normally a set of professors in the department who assist him in doing this. So, this is essentially what I would call tactical decisions. And at the operational level, the individual teacher who goes and teaches the class has a responsibility of deciding how to teach the course and operationally how to evaluate students and things of that type is what the person who is in the line, you might say, the line means in this case actual teaching, that decision is what he takes. But these are all very simple examples of organizations which you are all aware of. But companies for which many of the information systems are actually designed have a much larger hierarchy, and this hierarchy is also divided into a number of what I would say functions to be carried out under the control of the chief executive. Say for instance, most of the large organizations will have something called a production. They produce some items which they want to sell. The selling is done by marketing. Production and selling, there is marketing. And in order to produce items, you need materials. That is, you want to buy materials from outside, maybe assemblies, sub-assemblies and so on, which have to come to the company for in order to produce, and that is done, that is called materials management. And there is a finance management which determines where to find the money to buy all these items of the materials manager, not only how to find the money, but payment to all the vendors, collection of the receivables from once the items are sold, getting the money for what you have sold, and overall budgeting for the company in terms of what budgets are to be there, so that you have a profit and loss account at the end of the year. The company ought to make a profit, and he kind of monitors how the finances are actually being utilized, and has to create or to make up all this so called accounting statements, which are not only usable by the managers in the company, but very often they have to be also, they are also statutory. That is, the accounts have got to be presented some very often to the income tax officials. In the case of a so called public limited company, these accounts every quarter has got to be submitted to the Stock Exchange Board of India, and so there are many legal requirements for the for actually giving the financial status of any given company. And of course, every company has people to work. Unless there are people, the company will not function. So there is a human resource, and human resource management is the area generally of whom to hire and what kind of incentives you give to your employees, how do you detect employees who are not doing their job and to fire employees if it is allowed, and all those so called human resource development, which has many functions. I mean, I am only giving some samples of what the human resource supposed to be doing. And also many organizations which I have not shown here also have a research and development part. Research and development may not be there in every company, but most of the big companies try to kind of improve their products as they go along, and they require for that some method of looking a little bit ahead and seeing what are the new products which they may have to make, and to spend a little bit of effort and money in experimenting in terms of developing so called prototypes before they are really put in the production. So, these are all the areas which are there in most companies. Now, as I said, chief executive takes strategic decisions, and for each of these different areas like production, marketing and so on, there is somebody in charge. That will be a vice president marketing, or a vice president of materials, and there will be a vice president of finance. Some places call them vice presidents, some of them call the general manager or whatever it is. The names differ, but by and large they are in charge of their entire function, namely production or marketing or materials or finance or human resource. So, each of them take tactical decisions about their own areas, whereas the chief executive takes strategic decisions. What are really, and then ultimately of course for each of these persons at the general manager production will have a number of line managers who report to him, and they have their own responsibilities of managing the day-to-day operation of a production shop. So, as I said, top management is chief executive, it's called chief executive officer or managing director, what have you. There are different names of that, and executive directors for each functional areas or vice presidents or general managers and so on. And normally the chief executive officer is got both so called board of directors. The board of directors has apart from some of the executive directors who are employees in the company, have also external so called non-official directors who come from outside the organization, and they are normally taken for their specific expertise in that about that particular product or a company and so on. So, every company normally has what is known as board of directors. The board of directors is may be chaired by the chief executive, or it may have a non-executive chairman. But this board's primary function is to take strategic decisions in terms of what direction this company ought to be going. So, the chief executive is not a dictator in the sense that he also is actually comes under certain norms based on the advice he receives from the board of directors to whom he actually reports. And the board of directors of course does not meet every day, they meet once in 3 months normally to take a very long range strategic decision affecting the future of the company and what performance, how the performance is, and if there any bad performance, what corrective actions to take, and if it is some competition is brewing, taking some preemptive action before your competition really is able to make inroads into what you are doing. So, these are the things which the board of directors does, and as I said, it has got chief executive and a number of both executive directors and non official directors who come from outside. The middle management consists of general managers, divisional managers, vice presidents and so on, and each functional area may have 2 or 3 middle level managers reporting to the top management, and they take tactical decisions, and I gave you the examples of tactical decisions. Line managers are essentially group managers, assistant group managers, and each functional area may have several line managers reporting to middle level managers, and they take operational decisions. As I said, the functional areas are production, marketing, materials, finance, human resource, and R&D. It is not essential that every company have all these functions, functional areas. If you take a company like motor car company like Maruti, they will have definitely production, whereas a company like the company which may not have production is a pure marketing organization. There are companies in this country which do not produce anything at all. They take materials from many different vendors and just do the marketing and make sure that the profit is made, and essentially the company will do the company instead of producing does all the other functions of their own to be able to relieve the producing company from the problems of looking after marketing and stuff like that. So there are pure marketing companies. One of the important examples in India is the so-called Eureka Forbes, which sells all this AquaGuard and other types of materials, and they have a whole lot of salesmen who come and knock at your door every third day asking you to buy something, and they of course don't produce anything at all, but they are really what are known as marketing people working on behalf of not necessarily one company, but on behalf of several companies. Normally, of course, these several companies normally won't be competitors. They will have different types of products which this marketing company sells. So marketing, but if you take a normal company, even a marketing company, marketing will be definitely one part, because finance, every company has to make a profit, so there will be a finance part, and human resource is very important. Every company has to have people to work. So human resource area is something which will be common to almost every kind of company. Okay. Now let us look at the production management. What kind of strategic decisions a production manager would normally have to take. Now he has to look at production quotas and alternate schedules, policy and machine replacement, augmentation and modernization, identifying best product mix, and so on. Let me explain. I mean, this is I have to give an example to be able for you to clearly understand what these things really mean. Suppose you take say a company producing motor cars. If you take say Maruti Udyog, they produce many cars, many models of cars. There is a Maruti 800 car, which is a low cost car. There is a Maruti Alto, which is a little higher cost, and then there is also this they have Baleno and Swift, and so there are several models, and each model has a certain possible sales in a year, and there is you have to decide how to mix these products. In other words, do you produce a lot of Maruti 800 and reduce the number of cars at the Baleno class, because Baleno class will cost more than 7-8 lakhs, whereas Maruti 800 will cost less than 3 lakhs. So there is a different type of market. There are people who want to enter buying cars for the first time who would go for Maruti 800, but there are luxury segment where people want to get all the frills, and they will go for the highest model car. So he has to really decide how much of each of these he has to produce. It is called a product mix. So he has to decide that he may produce X number of Marutis, Y number of Altos, Z number of Baleno and so on. So this decision is strategic decision based on the experience of what went on in the previous years in terms of what he was able to sell, and no company wants to have a situation where items are not sold and they are still in the factory because they are dead. All the money has been already spent and nobody has bought it. So he has to reduce. If he suddenly finds that certain cars popularity is going down and some other cars popularity is going up, he has to automatically adjust the production what is to be done. So production quota, and he has to look at alternate schedules which are to be scheduled and so on. And all companies, all production companies will have machines, machine tools, like in a car company there will be a paint shop to paint the car. There will be a part to make up gears or so on. So there will be many production parts and apart from the assembly line, and he has to kind of see what to modernize. That is, is the paint shop becoming old, is the quality of painted items not as per what they require, and if it is becoming old, they have to kind of replace it ahead of time. Or he can find out what is the bottleneck. Suppose there is a crowding at the paint shop because cars are not getting painted, he may decide to have one more paint shop and increase the painting capability. So these kinds of strategic decisions has to be taken by the production manager, and so that product mix is very important. The tactical manager, on the other hand, has to look at the next level. Having decided what types of cars to produce and having been given a production schedule to the general manager saying that you make 10,000 cars of this type of model A, okay. Having been told that you make model A 10,000 cars, his job is to make sure these 10,000 cars come out in a whatever specified time, and that specified time is given by the strategic manager. So he has to also produce it at the minimal possible cost. So his tactical decision is to see where to get the supplies and how to kind of reduce the cost so that the ultimate cost of producing a car is minimized. And in production also there could be bottlenecks. See, there is bottlenecks in the sense that, as I pointed out, some item is not coming very regularly, or as I said, paint shop is getting all crowded. Then he has to essentially say that there is a bottleneck and inform the top management that there is a bottleneck being created. I need more machines, or I need more people, and these are the kinds of things which a tactical decision maker has to make. He has to also look at the alternate production schedules based on the available tools, machines, etc. Because suppose there is a given product mix, based on the product mix he can reschedule in such a way that there is no bottleneck. So all these decisions have to be kind of looked at by the tactical person. And also in terms of machine replacement, he has to look at the performance measures. If a machine is failing too often, he has to look at that and then tell the top management that this machine is not working too well. And then the operational manager, there is a line manager who is in the production shop, has to look at the day to day what is happening in terms of production information by examining assemblies, detecting likely shortages and giving early warning so that he can buy the items and scheduling better production dynamically, because see, no company has an absolute stable system. While production is going on, some machine may fail. The machine fails, you have to really decide on the line at that time what to do. Do you kind of buy a machine very immediately, or do you ask some other company to help you to do this and outsource it. These kinds of tactical decisions has got to be done, and our scheduling of items, so that the total production per day is optimized. These are items which the operational manager has to do, and he has to look at the preventive maintenance of all machines, because unless machines are maintained regularly, it may break down. So he has to have a schedule of preventive maintenance, and preventive maintenance schedule will be decided based on the past experience of how these machines behaved. So he can kind of predict that after about 6 months this machine may start giving problems. So he has to kind of look ahead and take this decision. And he has to he normally uses a monitoring tool which is computerized to give him some idea about what is going on at that time in terms of almost instant feedback. Nowadays it is all online. On a PC, he is connected to the network, he can find out at any given time what is the status of different machines, and what is the production status, and what is the level of items required, whether the inventory going down below a dangerous level, and things of that type he effectively can find out, and again monitoring tools and so on. To look at the entire production area, it is in fact one of the most crucial parts, and if you look at the way in which information passes, the operational information, namely all what is going on in terms of production, bottlenecks and so on, any exceptions which happen, something which is unexpected which happens, these unexpected parts are called exception reports. These exception reports go to the tactical manager. So tactical manager does not really get too much of information. He gets only the information which tells him that there is some kind of a problem, there is a bottleneck and things like that. Then based on that information he has to take some tactical decisions. Now based on all this information he will pass on to the top management the kind of problems he perceives which may brew up in the next year or something. And then strategic managers take charge of this. So in each areas there are different levels, and each level gets what they require and when they require it.